Q Review, print speaking to the blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the National Podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @CuneReview, that is @CuandReview. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@cunereview.com. That is INFORMATION or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
This is from The National on Friday the 26th of July, from the comments section. America expects, and Kamala Harris must now deliver. This article is written by Kelly Given. American politics never ceases to provide the dramatics, and this week has followed that trend closely with the somewhat expected departure of Joe Biden as a Democratic nominee on Sunday. There had been speculation about his intention to continue in his bid for the presidency amid concerns around his cognitive health, which was confirmed on Sunday, with the current president releasing a statement in which he said he believed it to be in the best interests of both the Democratic Party and the country that he stand down. In that same statement, he pledged his support for his vice president, Kamala Harris, who has since secured the support required from within her party to officially run as a Democratic nominee. The days following the president's exit from the race has seen the Democrats take a narrow 2-point lead against rival Donald Trump, and appears to have been the refresh the party needed to get ahead of the Republicans in what is one of the most crucial elections in American history, particularly for fundamental human rights. In less than 2 days, the Harris campaign attracted over $1 million in donations, which the Democrats have wasted no time in putting to use, with Harris taking to the stage in the battleground state of Wisconsin on Tuesday evening for her first rally as the official Democratic nominee. Harris used the rally to land some well-deserved punches on Trump, even correctly likening him to criminals that she prosecuted during her time as a prosecutor in the state of California. So, with the facts on the table that she appears to be more popular and likely to win than her predecessor, what is the hesitation towards her really about? Does at least some of it have some merit? Even if it does, with an election of this magnitude before the entire world, in a tight race between Harris and Trump, are we really in a position to dissuade people from voting the Democratic nominee? Or will key policy players be her and her entire world's downfall? American politics has long been a fascination of mine. I am often stuck between the reality that as a system it is farcically broken, and the reality that, whether it's true or not, the biggest power in the world depends on whatever that system produces. It is responsible for some of the worst things in history, as well as some of the biggest strides in progress since civilization began. I visited DC for the first time last year, and as a self-professed politics geek, was fascinated by it. There is so much to be learned from the history of American politics, lessons that unfortunately the entire world seems hell-bent on repeating, and the Harris campaign needs no hand in highlighting those. One of Harris's most uncomfortable subjects will be the ongoing genocide in Palestine, which under Biden's presidency has been funded at least in part to the tune of billions of dollars by the American government. Biden has been permanently tarnished with the Genocide Joe label that will no doubt follow him to the history books, and Harris as vice president will be right there on the pages beside him. Her nomination for the presidency, however, does allow her to take a different approach, but her refusal to do so could end the dream before it even begins. US support for Israel has been steadily on the decline for some time, following multiple aggressions and the illegal occupation of Palestinian land, though has deteriorated more drastically since their heavy invasion and bombardment of the Gaza Strip that began in October last year. Almost entering its 10th month, Israel's most recent aggression in Palestine has seen almost 40,000 Palestinians killed, as well as 88% of schools and more than half of homes destroyed or damaged. With the International Court of Justice last week finding Israel to be an apartheid state that is illegally occupying Palestine, all eyes will be on the frontrunner for the presidency and whether or not she intends to respect and abide by international law. And with the weight of public opinion mounting against Israel, particularly among younger voters, this really has the potential to make or break her straight out of the gate. There will be no time for reflection before her stance is to be made clear either, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu due to address US Congress. There have been musings that Harris has refused to preside over the session, which could point in the direction that she will be taking a stronger stance against Israeli aggression than the current president. But she doesn't have much time to nail her colours to the mast, and voters are paying attention. Though I have valid reservations about Harris, most notably around Palestine and decision-making at points in her tenure as a prosecutor in San Francisco, I have to say the discourse from her opposition, although predictable, is already a sorry state of affairs. Within one day of her intention to run being made public, the Republican representative for Tennessee, Tim Burchett, told CNN 1,000,000% she is DEI hire, referring, I assume, to the fact that she is a woman of colour. It was predictable, in fact as good as guaranteed, that this is the attack line the Republicans would go with, given that it is their intention to roll back hard-won human rights progress. But it feels exhausting to be listening to it in 2024, and shows just how vulnerable progress is, and how much is at stake in this election. Regardless, the feeling around Harris seems to be one of hope. She has revived the Democratic Party in their desperate hour, and catapulted it in a new direction that seemingly has a majority on board less than a week into her campaign. I think we can expect to see a much different race to the White House than the one we were initially offered. And given that the initial offering was two older white men yapping about golf and little else, I have to say I am finally paying attention. One thing is for certain, come November we will be faced with either the first woman in the White House or a convicted felon who's already been there and is committed to the rollback of women's rights. Two strikingly different realities. On paper, I know which I'd far prefer. I just hope that Harris can live up to her promise of being a woman of progress. Time will soon tell. That article was written by Kelly Given. This is from The National, on Friday the 26th of July, from the news section. Coast Guard issues statement on oil spill at Scottish fish farm. This article is written by Alistair Ferguson. The remaining fuel from a boat which was leaking oil after sinking at a fish farm has now been removed, the Coast Guard has confirmed. A landing craft named Julianne and operated by Scottish Sea Farms sank on July the 4th near the company's Funerary salmon farming site at the Sound of Mull. The vessel had been leaking oil near salmon nets, and specialist divers were deployed to seal any further leaks and to help clean up debris. The Scottish Environment Protection Agency SEPA, said it was not aware of any fish being harmed in the wake of the spillage. Scottish Sea Farms also said no fish had been sent to retailers since the boat sank. The Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, MCA, has issued an update as it said the leak does not currently pose a significant or long-term pollution risk. A spokesperson said, as expected, a small amount of pollution is still being observed, but volumes are small and dispersing. Given the current flow in the area concerned, small quantities lost from containment are inevitable, which is why oil removal from the wreck has been prioritised. Attempts were made at the weekend to recover the vessel, which is lying around 20 metres down on the seabed off the Ardnamurchan coast, but were unsuccessful. The Coast Guard said further efforts will be made to salvage the boat before a full inspection is carried out to establish the cause of the sinking. That article was written by Alistair Ferguson. This is from The National on Friday the 26th of July, from the news section. Fife. Anger at £35 million plan for caravan park in Scottish beauty spot. This article is written by Joe Sullivan. A proposal for a £35 million holiday park in Fife has provoked a strong reaction in the local community. The park, on the site of the Eden Springs Fishery and Country Park, would include 75 lodges alongside crazy golf and a play area. Leatham residents have expressed alarm at the proposal, and 71 objections have been lodged against the scheme, with one saying, "This is a natural beauty spot, not Benidorm." The community council in the nearby village of Monimail has led a fight against the development. The fishery on which the holiday site is planned was approved in 2022, after the Scottish Government overturned a Fife Council refusal. The site was previously a nature reserve, created to compensate locals for environmental harm caused by the nearby Mountcastle gravel quarry. David Hamilton, chair of the Community Council, told the Courier, "At the time the proposal was lodged, the community suspected this was a Trojan horse development. That appears to have been the case, as less than 18 months later, plans have been lodged for 75 holiday lodges on the nature reserve." That article was written by Joe Sullivan. This is from The National on Friday the 26th of July, from the news section. Keir Starmer faces questions on £300 energy bills election promise. This article is written by Hamish Morrison. Keir Starmer faces questions over an election campaign promise he made that GB Energy would reduce household bills by £300. The government on Thursday morning appeared to back away from the figure, with the Prime Minister's spokesperson repeatedly refusing to repeat the Labour leader's election claim. But Starmer later insisted he stood by the campaign trail promise as he faced renewed scrutiny over the project with the introduction of legislation to get it started. During a visit to a factory in Widnes, Cheshire, Starmer was grilled on the election pledge and asked whether he was still promising voters their bills would come down by £300. He said, "Yes, I do. I stand by everything in my manifesto, and one of the things I made clear in the election campaign is because I wouldn't make a single promise or commitment that I didn't think we could deliver in government, and that's why we carefully costed and funded everything in our manifesto. That does depend on early, firm decisions being made, which is why we've set up GB Energy, why we've announced the partnership today with the Crown Estate, and why the Energy Secretary has already taken action in week 1 in relation to onshore wind, in relation to solar energy, and also pushing on with nuclear. So I stand by that commitment." But speaking to reporters in Westminster, his spokesperson repeatedly refused to back the figure, saying only that the actions taken by the government would deliver bill reductions over the course of the next 5 years. Further doubt on the claim was sparked by Ed Miliband's media appearances on Thursday, where the Energy Secretary also appeared reluctant to put a figure on the amount households could expect to save. The government argues that the creation of Great British Energy can break the link to international fossil fuel markets and deliver cleaner and cheaper energy, reducing bills. The Prime Minister's spokesperson added, "It's going to take time. We're not going to be able to deliver this overnight, but if you invest in clean energy, you will start to see lower bills very quickly." Asked about when people could expect to see their bills reduce, Miliband told BBC Breakfast, "Within a couple of years, as we build new onshore wind, new solar, we'll start to see the effect on bills, but there are lots of things going on here. So our exposure to gas prices, which are set internationally, is something I don't control." The Scottish Greens said the government must come good on promises about breaking the link between gas and electricity prices. Co-leader Patrick Harvey said, "That is how we can cut bills straight away, making zero-carbon technology affordable for more people and making it cheaper and easier to warm our homes and buildings with clean, green, renewable energy." He warned that GB Energy must not become yet another cash cow for private investors or a nuclear money pit. That article was written by Hamish Morrison. This is from The National on Friday the 26th of July, from the news section. Scotland bin strikes 2024. See the full list of areas affected. This article is written by Lucy Jackson. The vast majority of Scotland's local authorities are set to be impacted by the upcoming bin strikes. Waste and recycling workers from Unite, GMB and Unison rejected the latest pay offer from COSLA, the body which represents Scotland's 32 local authorities. On Wednesday, COSLA agreed to ask the Scottish Government for additional funding, a move which resolved similar disputes in 2022 and 2023. A total of 25 of Scotland's 32 local authorities are set to be impacted by the strike action, which could begin in the middle of August. Not all unions are going on strike in the same areas, meaning local authorities will be impacted to different extents. Here is the full list of areas impacted by the strikes, including which unions are planning on striking where. Aberdeen City Council, Unite, GMB. Aberdeenshire Council, GMB. Angus Council, Unite. City of Edinburgh Council, Unite, GMB. Clackmannanshire Council, Unison. Dumfries and Galloway Council, Unison, Unite. Dundee City Council, Unite. East Ayrshire Council, Unison, Unite, GMB. East Dunbartonshire Council, GMB. East Lothian Council, Unison. East Renfrewshire Council, Unite. Fife Council, Unison, Unite, GMB. Glasgow City Council, Unison, Unite. Highland Council, Unite. Inverclyde Council, Unison, Unite, GMB. Midlothian Council, Unison, GMB. North Ayrshire Council, Unite. North Lanarkshire Council, Unison, Unite. Orkney Islands Council, GMB. Perth and Kinross Council, Unite, GMB. Renfrewshire Council, Unite. South Ayrshire Council, Unite. South Lanarkshire Council, Unison, GMB. Stirling Council, Unison, GMB. and West Lothian Council, Unison Unite. The only local authorities not impacted by the strikes are Argyll and Bute Council, Falkirk Council, Murray Council, Scottish Borders Council, Shetland Islands Council, West Dunbartonshire Council. That article was written by Lucy Jackson. This is from The National on Friday the 26th of July, from the Culture section. Scottish Fishing Museum casts a net for new funding. This article is written by Paul Kelly, local democracy reporter. A Kelso-based fishing museum is casting a net for new funding next week. When members of Scottish Borders Council's Cheviot Area Partnership meet on Wednesday, July the 31st, they will consider an application for £5,000 from River Tweed Salmon Fishing Museum in Kelso. The funding is needed to assist with the renovation and continued operation of the museum. This includes updating of signage and displays, the making of publicity films, installation of CCTV, and the servicing of TV displays. The museum explores the history of salmon fishing over 8,000 years and allows visitors to discover the story of its birth and development as a worldwide sport on the River Tweed. On display are more than 3,000 objects on the history, art, and nature of salmon fishing. Exhibitions focus on nature and environment, salmon life cycles, river art, models, historic maps, books and literature, poetry, vintage fishing tackle, fly tying, and film display screens. In a report to the committee, Cheviot Community Fund Assessment Panel recommends that members agree funding of £4,176. The report stated, "It was noted that a significant amount of funds for the museum are donations from the local fishing community and visitors, and it does provide a huge benefit to the community." People visiting Kelso still see the town hall as the central point to obtain information about the local area, even though the tourist information facility that was previously there closed some years ago. Volunteers at the museum continue to give out useful information to visitors to the town. The panel felt that a number of items stated on the quote, dated 29/3/24, did not seem to be effective value for money, such as property repairs, securing all exhibits from theft, and servicing 5 display TV screens. The panel was also not willing to support the items associated with CCTV and drone works. After discussion, it was agreed by the panel that funding should be recommended for the full amount for signage and storyboards and items stated on the quote, dated 10/4/24, specifically £4,176. Another objection states, "The site was only recently reinstated as a nature reserve after quarry works." That article was written by Paul Kelly.
From The National, Monday the 29th of July, from the news section. Amir Anwar to represent family involved in Manchester airport case. Article written by Ross Hunter. A top Scottish lawyer is to represent the family involved in an incident at Manchester airport which appeared to include a police officer kicking a man in the head as he lay on the ground. Fahir Ahmad and Mohammed Ahmad were involved in a clash with police officers at Manchester airport on July 23rd. Footage posted on social media appeared to show an armed police officer stamping on the head of a man as he was on the ground. Greater Manchester Police, GMP, said 3 of the officers had been assaulted, including a woman who suffered a broken nose, and 4 remain arrested. It's understood that 2 police officers were pushed to the ground in the melee before other officers restrained the men with tasers. Indeed, CCTV footage released on social media days after the incident appeared to show two men punching officers in the face after they attempted to make an arrest. The police later confirmed that an officer had been suspended and a referral made to the Independent Office for Police Conduct, IOPC, for a full independent investigation. We understand the deep concerns that have been widely raised with us and will continue to meet and discuss these feelings with Greater Manchester residents and elected representatives whilst this independent investigation takes place, a spokesperson said. Now, renowned Scottish lawyer Amir Anwar has announced that he will be representing the family going forward. In a statement released on Monday, he said, "I am instructed on behalf of Fahir Ahmaz, Mohammed Ahmad, their mother and family, in respect of the incident at Manchester Airport on Tuesday, 23rd July 2024. I have spoken to the IOPC with regards to lodging a formal complaint and expect all CCTV and police bodycam footage to be retained. There can be no excuse for any footage to inadvertently disappear. If certain police officers behave like this in an area full of CCTV and in the presence of so many witnesses, then it really begs the question of what they are capable of when there is no such evidence. Highly trained police officers can never use provocation or emotion to justify the use of excessive, illegitimate and potentially lethal force. I would also urge any members of the public who witnessed the incident or were subjected to police violence to come forward and either contact the IOPC or my office. The family, of whom a number are serving police officers, wish to make it clear if any member of their family was engaged in criminal conduct, then they must face due process. However, the repeated attempts by so-called police sources to spin a false narrative or context are deeply unhelpful to an IOPC investigation. We expect the GMP to arrest a member of the public who is accused of subjecting the two brothers' 60-year-old mother to a tirade of racist abuse and assault. This is what sparked the incident. The police of course have his details and must act immediately. Over the coming days, once formal legal steps and investigations are complete, the family will issue a full statement at a press conference. And that report was written by Ross Hunter. From the National, Monday the 29th of July, Politics. Labour government scraps winter fuel payment for millions. Report by James Walker. Rachel Reeves has announced that the government will be ending winter fuel payments for those not in receipt of benefits. It comes, as the Chancellor said, there was a £22 billion black hole in the public finances as she accused the Tories of covering up the scale of the problems. Removing the payment for millions of pensioners will save £1.5 billion per year, she said. People born before the 25th of September 1957 were previously able to get between £100 and £300 to help pay heating bills. Now, only those households with someone aged over state pension age who get one of pension credit, universal credit, income support, income-based job seekers allowance and income-related employment and support allowance will continue to receive winter fuel payments. The Scottish Government is already looking to replace this payment, the National understands, and have been approached for further comment. Speaking at the Commons on Monday, Reeves sparked groans from the opposition benches as she announced the difficult decision to make changes to winter fuel payment eligibility. She said the previous Tory government repeatedly, knowingly and deliberately made spending commitments without knowing where the money was coming from. Today, I'm making the difficult decision that those not in receipt of pension credit or certain other means-tested benefits will no longer receive the winter fuel payment from this year onwards, Reeves said. The government will continue to provide winter fuel payments worth £200 for households receiving pension credit or £300 to households in receipt of pension credit with someone over the age of 80. Let me be clear, this is not a decision I wanted to make, nor is it one that I expected to make, but these are the necessary and urgent decisions that I must make. It is a responsible thing to do to fix the foundations of our economy and bring back economic stability. Reacting to the announcement, consumer expert Martin Lewis said bills would now be unaffordable for millions of people. The founder of the website Money Saving Expert said, "The targeting of winter fuel payments is too narrow with the winter we have coming. Pensioners were already due to get less, as this will be the first time since winter 2022 they haven't got the up to £300 extra winter fuel cost of living top-up. The UK government said, "This will better target support for heating costs at those who need it." And that report was by James Walker, and it was read by me, Ian McKenna. From the National, Monday the 29th of July, from the news section, newsletter, Media Watch, The Sun publishers' fake security threat allegations. Report by political reporter James Walker. The publisher of The Sun has agreed to search for documents that may relate to allegations it invented a fake security threat to justify the wiping of millions of incriminating emails, the High Court has been told. According to court documents, Newsgroup Newspapers, NGN, faces accusations it created a false narrative that a Labour peer conspired with ex-Prime Minister Gordon Brown to obtain stolen data as part of a bid to conceal wrongdoing and subvert police investigations into the phone hacking scandal. The claim about the mass deletion of emails features in legal action brought against NGN by the Duke of Sussex and others over allegations that they were targeted by unlawful information gathering. NGN denies that in 2011 security threat over the suspected theft of the then Chief Executive Rebekah Brooks' emails was devised as part of a cover-up. The company, which also published the now defunct News of the World, has previously denied unlawful activity took place at The Sun. On Friday, a judge was told that the publisher had agreed to make searches for potentially relevant material linked to Will Lewis, a former News International general manager and current publisher of the Washington Post, James Murdoch, son of media mogul Rupert Murdoch, and others. It came amid a preliminary hearing in London over claims brought by former Labour Deputy Leader Lord Tom Watson and ex-Liberal Democrat Business Secretary Vince Cable. Both former ministers who attended the hearing allege NGN targeted them through voicemail interception and the use of private investigators. In ex-MP Cable's claim, the publisher is accused of unlawfully obtaining covert recordings of his constituency surgery in 2010, where he said he had declared war on Murdoch. Cable alleges that the recordings, obtained by a Daily Telegraph sting, were leaked to the BBC by Lewis, documents said. The BBC's report of the comments led to ex-Prime Minister David Cameron stripping Cable of responsibility for adjudicating on the NGN parent company of News Corp's bid for the full ownership of broadcaster B-Sky B. Lawyers for Lord Watson and Cable asked Justice Fancourt to allow NGN to conduct further searches of material that may disclose evidence relative to their cases. NGN opposed some of the disclosure search bids as a disproportionate and an expensive and time-consuming process, while agreeing to some searches. David Sherborne, for Lord Watson and Cable, said in written arguments that the former was a target for unlawful activities due to his role in the Parliamentary Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee, which was investigating media malpractice. The barrister said Lord Watson was falsely cited by senior NGN executives, such as Rebekah Brooks and Will Lewis, as part of the fake security threat used to justify the wiping of the crucial backup tapes of NGN's email system that led to the deletion of millions of incriminating emails. He said NGN should look for material in relation to a claim that there had been a suspected theft of Rebekah Brooks' emails. These were offered or provided to the claimant. He had been handling stolen data, and it was working in a conspiracy with Gordon Brown to obtain such data. This was then used as a facade to engage in the destruction of emails on an enormous scale, Sherborne said. The barrister said Cable's claims that NGN targeted him and colleagues in government with unlawful information gathering during News Corp's bid to buy shares in B-Sky B. News Corp was desperate to avoid intervention by the government or the official regulator, Sherborne said. According to Cable's written case pleadings, NGN unlawfully obtained recordings of his private conversations through improper payments or inducements to a Daily Telegraph IT department employee and or by other unlawful means, by Lewis. When giving evidence to the Leveson inquiry in 2012, Lewis declined to answer whether he leaked Cable's comments to the former BBC journalist Robert Peston, citing the need to protect sources. Anthony Hudson, KC, for NGN, said there had already been vast disclosure in the legal action. The barrister said some wider searches for material were disproportionate, while Cable and Lord Watson's claims were valued at less than £100,000, with both men incurring legal costs higher than this in their disclosure bids. In written arguments, Hudson said the threat to Brooks' data was believed to be genuine. He added, NGN received information on 2 occasions that there was a direct threat that a current or former employee was actively trying to sell data belonging to NGN. It was against this background that NGN decided that multiple copies of confidential data should not be held in various systems, which would increase the risk of loss of data. Justice Fancourt made rulings over certain disclosure bids. The hearing is due to continue on Friday to cover remaining applications brought by Cable, including in relation to the covert recordings issue. Meanwhile, SNP complaints about a misleading BBC headline have been dismissed. The broadcaster was accused of letting truth take a backseat to convenience after Kevin Stewart, the MSP for Aberdeen Central and a former Transport Minister, wrote to BBC Director General Tim Davie, raising concerns about an article on the 2-child benefit cap that appeared on the BBC on July 15th. The BBC article had been headlined, SNP join push to scrap 2-child benefit cap. Its first paragraph then reported, the SNP has announced plans to join Labour rebels in trying to force the government to scrap the 2-child benefit cap. Various SNP figures took issue with the headline, leading to Stewart raising his concerns directly, writing in a letter, SNP's plans to table an amendment to the King's Speech to remove the cap are clearly a continuation of the SNP's 7-year fight against this horrific policy. I fail to understand how this latest move can in any way be described as joining the push to scrap the 2-child benefit cap, when it is the SNP that have been spearheading that push all along. To suggest otherwise, as this headline does, is simply misleading. Responding to the letter in Davie's stead, BBC Executive News Editor of Politics, Hilary O'Neill, dismissed the concerns as this particular story focused on the challenge to the new Labour government over the policy. Stewart was unimpressed by the response, saying that many people see a headline and don't bother to read the article, so it's imperative that they are accurate, since this may be all a person takes in about the story. And that article was written by James Walker. From the National, Monday the 29th of July, from the comment section. Analysis. An economist reacts to Rachel Reeves' speech, utterly unjustifiable. Column by Professor Richard Murphy. It looked as if Rachel Reeves had taken drama lessons to put on a show of sufficient mock anger in the comments today. She clearly wanted to blame the Tories for what she was announcing, but nothing could hide the truth that we already knew, that there was a budget hole left of £20 billion by the Tories. Her anger was something that was old news to the whole country. For someone who made repeated claims that she would always tell the truth about the state of the country's finances, she made a poor show of doing so. Even the figures she announced did not add up, however you sorted them. So, what did Reeves say when she got over her initial posturing? There were a few core messages as far as I could tell. The first was that she's agreed to settle pay disputes in England, all of which were largely resolved in Scotland and Wales long ago. She did not acknowledge that fact, of course. Second, she announced penal austerity, mainly in English budgets, that will undoubtedly significantly reduce the rate of government investment in the economy and dramatically slow the rate of growth in the UK economy as a whole. Roads, hospitals and railways suffer most as a result, but the impact will be widespread. Third, there was no hint of new taxes on the incomes of the wealthy. They were, in fact, specifically ruled out, but almost in the same breath, she announced that the winter fuel allowance of millions of pensioners will be removed. Anyone not in pension credits and some other benefits will lose out. Millions will do so as a result. In that one announcement, Reeves made clear what her priorities are. When it comes to investment, she would rather shovel money at the City of London and have the government actually meet need by spending itself. And while it comes to sacrifices demanded, they will come from the least well off, not the wealthiest. And this is from what claims to be a Labour government. But, in truth, this government is nothing of that sort. Labour built the post-war prosperity of the UK on the basis of the teachings of John Maynard Keynes, a Cambridge professor of economics, who taught during the Second World War that, after it, we can afford anything we can do. Reeves revealed her new mantra today. It is, we can only do what we can afford, which is the exact opposite of what Keynes said. Keynes wanted to empower the country by letting it do the best that was possible, knowing that this would generate enough wealth to pay for what was achieved. Reeves wants to use her role to belittle the country by denying it, and all of us the chance to do those things of which we are capable, which is a dismal aspiration. Reeves made clear where she stands today. She is a Chancellor in the Tory tradition of George Osborne, Philip Hammond and even Rishi Sunak. Just when the country most needed a new vision, she's going to offer us nothing of the sort. But, worst of all, when we needed a Chancellor dedicated to addressing the inequality that riddles our country, she has already signalled that she is on the side of the wealthy and is determined that those less well off should pay for the austerity she will impose. This was a deeply divisive, utterly unjustifiable, mean-hearted and economically illiterate performance by Reeves that, alongside remaining high interest rates from the Bank of England, makes the likelihood of a recession in the UK quite high. And there is absolutely no need for that. It will all be her fault if it happens. And that was a comment piece by Professor Richard Murphy. From the National, Tuesday the 30th of July, from the comment section, Karen Adam, we must not lose momentum on road to independence. Article written by Karen Adam, columnist. It has been a few weeks since Holyrood stopped for recess, and it's refreshing to take a wee step back and observe everything from a different perspective. Since the election, while still working, I've tried to catch up with family and friends. It's great for the soul to take stock and reevaluate, and have time for reflection and self-appraisal. Now, I'm not going to air my dirty laundry, as my gran would say, but it's cathartic to have the opportunity to write things down and put them out into the open. That is partly why I'm writing a book. Whether it will ever be published or if I want anyone to read it once it's done, I don't know. So far, I've been quite candid in it, and looking back, I can't quite believe how I got here. As a 15-year-old pregnant quine from Northfield in Aberdeen, I don't think I knew what the future would hold. I tend to be known as an oversharer, but that's how I connect with people. Training experiences is a way for me to build genuine connections. I truly appreciate when others share their experiences with me, because I believe it's through this that we can gain compassion for each other. I have been incredibly grateful to those brave enough to share their stories during harrowing situations and difficult times. Their courage has helped many others cope and feel less alone. It's a terrifying thing to share vulnerable stories, but, as humans, we need to hear them. Coming into politics with the intent to be honest and open has been a steep learning curve. Navigating the complexities of media and preparing for all kinds of feedback, regardless of my intentions, has been eye-opening. It's plain to see why many people feel the need to be guarded and keep their personal lives completely private. I do have the utmost respect for that, and have wished many times I had done the same. Regrets, I have a few, as the song goes. Looking back, though, several politicians successfully connected with their constituents by being down to the earth and reliable. One notable example is Barack Obama. His willingness to share personal stories, whether about his upbringing, his family or his struggles, resonated deeply with people. Obama's Hope campaign was a testament to how personal authenticity can inspire and mobilise a movement. His ability to speak openly about his experiences and values helped build a strong foundation of trust with the electorate. We need more of that authenticity and less political dressing up. People aren't daft, they see through it. My passion has always been social justice and equality, as many readers of this column know, stemming from my own family's experiences. However, finding the balance between sharing my story and respecting my family's privacy can be tricky. I continue to try to navigate that with prior consent and to only share for reasons of awareness and understanding. Unsurprisingly, like many in the public eye, I have been known to overthink, often replaying interactions and conversations in my head, especially when there's something to be learned from it. And, over the last few weeks, it's still the conversations I had with people during the election campaign that have stuck with me the most. It's invaluable to step out of the office and hear directly from people about their wants and needs. A common theme emerged that many felt that politics was a game and that they were disenfranchised. Does rebuilding public trust in politics require us to take a leaf out of Obama's book? Is it about showing our human side, sharing our stories, and being transparent about our intentions and actions? Do we need to engage with people on a personal level? By sharing why I got into politics, I hope to convince people of the merits of political participation, why ordinary people must ensure their voices are heard. I want to highlight how these crosses we put on ballot papers translate into our everyday lives. In the aftermath of the general election, it's clear we need to focus on rebuilding trust within our movement. The SNP have faced significant challenges, but we must not dwell on our defeats. Instead, we need to learn from them and come back stronger. We need to remind ourselves why we're here, to fight for an independent Scotland. The negative press can be disheartening, but we must not let it define us. We need to bring back the positivity in our movement, emphasising the progress we've made and the potential that lies ahead. We need to highlight the tangible benefits of independence and how it can lead to a more prosperous and just society for all. As we move forward, let us keep the lines of communication open. Let us share our stories, listen to others, and build a community based on trust and mutual respect. Together, we can overcome the challenges we face and work towards a brighter future for Scotland. A future where everyone feels empowered to take control of their destiny, in a country that truly represents their hopes and dreams. We are often asked how we will achieve independence, and, yes, there are valid concerns raised about how a legitimate route can be sought. While that conversation continues, and a route is prepared, we must not lose momentum. We must keep up support and increase it. To gain independence, we must have a country that shows it wants it, that it isn't just in the hands of politicians, that it's in the hands of everyone. I do think that by being open, honest and relatable, we can rebuild trust and strengthen our movement, and I look forward to working on that with you. And that article was written by Karen Adam, and it was read by me, Ian McKenna. From the National, Tuesday the 30th of July, from the comment section, Scotland should lead the UK on conversion therapy ban, by Steph Payton. Thinking back to that halcyon summer campaign ahead of the independence referendum 10 years ago, it strikes me that the image of the Yes movement, as one that takes pride in its progressivism, is a little diminished of late. For some caught up in the culture war, progressive has become a dirty word, and similarly, the self-appointed Party of Independence itself seems to be re-evaluating its relationship to the idea. Some may argue that appointing a Deputy First Minister who believes that queer people are effectively second-class citizens should not count against their credibility. I would strongly disagree. But with the Prime Minister's announcement that he will bring forward a ban on the tortuous practice of so-called conversion therapy, the process of trying to forcefully change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity, the Scottish Government is about to be tested on just what being a progressive party means. Labour's proposed ban will come into effect in England and Wales, meaning that, were our government willing, it could be extended to Scotland in turn. Thus, the Scottish Government would have no need to go through the predictably fraught process of passing its own positive legislation for the LGBTQ+ community in the current climate. There are already rumblings that this could be what lies ahead, but if the Scottish Government was to drop its own legislation in favour of the UK Government's, what would that say about them? This legislation was defined by the former Equalities Minister Emma Roddick as a message to Scotland's LGBTQ+ community that the Scottish Government is still with them. What would it say to us now, to leave us to Labour? While the King's speech included a promise for a draft bill to be brought forward to ban conversion practices, we have no idea what form that bill will take, or when it will come, or if, as it was under two separate Conservative governments before then, it will be announced and quietly forgotten. Scotland has a chance to lead in banning conversion therapy practices, not to follow. Is that not what the message of the Progressive Yes movement was all about? Is that not the image of itself that the SNP wishes to project? Given the ease with which Labour's leadership have adopted the talking points of anti-trans organisers, I have restrained expectations of what a Labour bill will even look like once it reaches the end of its journey. The Prime Minister himself recently said that gender ideology, successor to the gay agenda of the 80s and 90s, should not be taught in schools. The gender ideology that Keir Starmer was referring to here is, most likely, the simple acknowledgement that trans people exist. Meanwhile, UK Health Secretary Wes Streeting has, in his short time in the position, so deeply damaged the Labour Party's reputation with the LGBTQ+ community that he had to be wheeled out to deliver an "I actually don't have a problem with trans people but" thread on social media. For a conversion therapy ban to mean anything at all, it can have no loopholes and it must be trans inclusive. To fail on either count will be to fail on all counts. This is not something, justifiably, I feel able to trust the current Labour Party to do right. I will reserve judgment for when, if, the bill sees the light of day, and how quickly it is attacked by parliamentarians as it progresses. It is no secret that the same well-funded groups that were relentlessly spotlighted by the British press during the passings and subsequent vetoing, which Labour have said they will not reverse, of the Gender Recognition Reform Bill in Holyrood. These transphobic and homophobic campaigners are prepared to mobilise again, worried that a ban will criminalise them, though, if I found myself suddenly at risk of being criminalised for torturing and abusing children, as conversion therapy does, I'd maybe be taking a moment to consider my life choices. Whoever tries to pass this bill will have a fight in their hands, one that I hope our government won't shy away from. Banning this abhorrent practice is not, as some would characterise it, an attack on anyone's religious freedom. You, personally, have the inalienable right not to get gay married. Great news. You, personally, do not need to transition if you don't want to either. That is your personal choice. Asserting that young, queer and trans people deserve autonomy over their lives is no more trampling on your rights than a vegan sausage roll from Greggs is stopping you from eating meat. I find it to be especially despicable how some of us have used their faith as a shield for horrors, as if the justification of faith means that actions are beyond critique. Your actions are what you are being judged on, not your faith. The Scottish Government is, as far as I know, still collating the data from the recent consultation on banning the practice, but that will mean nothing if it chooses to take the easy path and leave the fight to Labour. Scotland should lead, not follow, on banning conversion therapy practices. After all, independence and autonomy are what Yes voters chose in 2014. I hope that a progressive, independence-minded SNP will recognise this and move ahead with a robust plan that leaves no one behind. And that was a comment piece by Steph Payton.
From the National, Wednesday, 31st July 2024, News section. Anas Samwar left red-faced after Rachel Reeves' tax intervention. By Adam Robertson, multimedia journalist. Anas Samwar has been left red-faced following comments he made about Labour's tax plans during the election campaign. It comes as Chancellor Rachel Reeves confirmed the government will have to raise some taxes in October's budget, following months of speculation about the party's stance on the issue. Responding to a question about raising money following her claim on Monday that the previous Tory government left a £22 billion hole in the public finances, the Chancellor told the newsagent's podcast, "I think we will have to increase taxes in the budget." Reeves reiterated that she would not raise VAT, national insurance or income tax as promised in Labour's manifesto, although did not rule out increasing inheritance tax, capital gains tax or reforming tax relief on pensions. She told the show she wasn't going to write a budget or start to write a budget on this podcast, as she said Labour want to stick to sensible rules aimed at reducing long-term debt. In June, Rishi Sunak below found himself in a row with Labour after he claimed the party's spending plans would result in a £2,000 tax rise for working families. Following Sunak's claim, Chief Treasury civil servant James Bowler said in a letter to Labour that the Tories' assessment of their tax plans shouldn't be presented as having been produced by the civil service. A number of questions about the credibility of the figure were raised with Sawar, saying Sunak had spread misinformation and that it was a lie from a desperate Prime Minister. However, Sawar also added there will be no tax rises for working people. During a visit to Glasgow, Reeves also told the BBC the Prime Minister lied in the debate last night about Labour's tax plans. Labour will not be increasing taxes on working people. Speaking on the news agent's podcast, however, Reeves said, "We had in our manifesto a commitment to fiscal rules to balance day-to-day spending through tax receipts, and by the end of the forecast period to get debt down as a share of GDP. These are sensible fiscal rules to help get a grip on the public finances. We also made other commitments in our manifesto not to increase national insurance, VAT or income tax for the duration, and we'll stick with those." Pressed more specifically on which taxes could go up, Reeves said, "We will have a budget on October the 30th, and ahead of that budget we will have a forecast by the Office of Budget Responsibility on this occasion, based on accurate numbers." Labour have been under pressure on their economic policies, with Stephen Flynn saying Monday marked a new era of austerity, as Reeves unveiled billions of pounds in spending cuts. The Chancellor said her aim was to expose the scale of what has been uncovered after Labour came to power, pointing to a £22 billion black hole left by the previous government. She set out immediate action to deal with this, including cancellation and delays of major infrastructure projects and winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners in the UK. Sawar has also faced criticism following the speech, as he repeatedly said there would be no austerity under Labour government throughout the general election campaign. We also told how hundreds of people had put their name to a petition calling on the Scottish Labour head of to resign for misleading the Scottish electorate. That article was by Adam Robertson. From the National, Wednesday, 31st of July 2024. News section. Second Union confirms bin strikes to begin within weeks in 18 council areas. By Ross Hunter, multimedia journalist. A second union has confirmed that bin strikes will begin within weeks in council areas across Scotland. GMB has formally served notice on 18 Scottish councils, warning them to expect 8 days of industrial action by its members, working in waste collection and recycling, starting on August the 14th. Waste workers at another union, Unite, also voted against accepting a pay offer made to try and avoid strikes, though is yet to confirm its own strike dates. It comes after pay talks with local government body COSLA stalled. Finance Secretary Shona Robinson met with union leaders in COSLA on Tuesday, describing the talks as productive and stating that the Scottish Government is committed to further negotiation. Keir Greenaway, JMB Scotland's senior organiser in public services, said a rejected pay offer of 3.2% had failed to match the escalating cost of living or the rise offered to council workers in England and Wales. He said, "We had constructive talks with the Scottish Government and COSLA yesterday, but our members are less interested in constructive talks than fair pay. The process has gone on far too long with too little progress. We're now more than halfway through the year, and there's no more time to waste discussing old offers with new wrappings. Enough is enough. Industrial action will start in 2 weeks unless ministers and local authorities identify the money needed to make an acceptable offer. These strikes will be disruptive to all the Scots who rely on our members, but would not be necessary if councils had shown a greater urgency and a sense of realism. The following council areas are set to be impacted by the action: Aberdeenshire, Aberdeen City, East Ayrshire, City of Edinburgh, East Dunbartonshire, Falkirk, Fife, Glasgow, Highland, Inverclyde, Midlothian, North Lanarkshire, Orkney Islands, Perth and Kinross, Renfrewshire, South Lanarkshire, Stirling and West Lothian. It comes amid growing concern that piles of rubbish will impact the Edinburgh Festival in a repeat of scenes which occurred in 2022 following a similar row over pay. That article was by Ross Hunter. From the Herald, Wednesday, 31st of July 2024. News section. Much about GB Energy still isn't stacking up. By Seamus Logan, SNP MP. Last Friday in the House of Commons, I made my first input into a parliamentary debate. It was entitled Making Britain the Clean Energy Superpower. I sat through 4 hours of contributions on the Labour government's plans for the creation of the frustratingly named Great British Energy. Why was I frustrated? For a start, because at least 75% of the UK's energy production comes from Scotland. It reminded me of so many occasions watching Andy Murray on the tennis court. When he was victorious, he was invariably the great British champion, Andy Murray. In defeat, he was always Scotland's Andy Murray. At the end of the debate, I was even more frustrated because I was left with more questions than I received answers to. We learned a lot about Labour's claims for what the organisation will achieve, but not a great deal about how it will manage to do so. Confusion still reigns. For example, we were told that taxpayers' money will leverage private sector investment. As a result, our energy bills will come down because of a massive offshore wind farm development, leading to between 20 to 30 gigawatts of additional electricity generation. But will it work? Particularly in the timescales that Labour boldly claim. We were also told that GB Energy is a new partnership between the government and the Crown Estate, which owns a seabed for 12 miles off Scotland's shores. But before we look at those matters, let's focus on one simple question that is yet to be answered. Where will this organisation be based? On behalf of the many thousands of people who work in the energy sector in the northeast of Scotland, I must assert the case for Aberdeen to be the new home of GB Energy. As I said in my speech during the debate, the bulk of offshore renewables production will be within a 100-mile radius of Aberdeen. The ports that will be essential to servicing the renewables sector are on the east coast, close to the Moray Firth. Not least the larger ports in my own constituency at Peterhead and Fraserburgh, but also other smaller ports such as Buckie. We have a workforce with relevant skills and unrivaled experience already in place. According to research published last year by Robert Gordon University, around 1 in 5 jobs across the northeast of Scotland is in oil and gas. We must capitalise on the skills these workers possess, the vast majority of which are crossover skills. This is what a managed and just transition means. It means never abandoning the people and the communities that have delivered billions of pounds of revenue every year into the UK Treasury for close to 50 years now. Returning to Labour's claims of lower energy bills by the end of this Parliament, this is at best an unrealistically bold claim, and at worst one based on potentially riding roughshod over the rights of local communities and planning matters, rights which are devolved to the Scottish Parliament. What we know is that the infrastructure necessary to deliver the energy to our homes, cables, pylons, battery storage facilities, new substations, is well behind schedule. Even with helpful planning consent, some of the schemes may not be generating power for another 10 to 15 years. But this helpful planning context may involve dismissing local concerns in areas of outstanding natural beauty in order to meet the Westminster government promise. It may also involve another power grab on Holyrood. Of course, there must be a balance between national interests and local concerns, but not at any cost. Properly informing and addressing community concerns takes time, and that is something this new government has already left itself short on. Another point of concern for me is something I directly challenged the Energy Minister Michael Shanks to address. While this new company is called GB Energy, it seems it can do nothing to directly lower the cost of gas, which Ed Miliband has already acknowledged is sold on the open international market. Shanks dismissed my question as ill-informed, but he failed the answer regarding the role of GB Energy in helping our thousands of gas consumers who have been paying through the nose, other than to claim more electricity means less gas. Really. It shouldn't be called GB Energy, possibly GB Electric, or GB Renewables, but in my view it really should be called Scottish Energy. It should belong to the people of Scotland who are continuing to pay the highest standing charges in the UK while living in the coldest parts of these islands. The shores off the coast of this nation should belong to the people of this country, not the monarchy which is already rich beyond the dreams of avarice. And what of the Labour Party's broken promise and their 28 billion investment in green energy? What will be the next cut? One final question concerning the elephant in the room, modular nuclear reactors. Will be forced to accept their construction on Scottish soil. Again, local communities will wonder if their opinions will count in the face of Labour's plans. The only real solution for the people here in Scotland to obtain a better energy future for their children and grandchildren is for Scotland to own its own assets and determine its own future as an independent, sovereign nation. That article was by Seamus Logan. From the National, Wednesday, 31st of July 2024. News section. Almost 40 officers injured following riot in Southport after deaths of 3 girls. By Adam Robertson, multimedia journalist. Almost 40 police officers suffered serious injuries when bricks, stones and bottles were thrown and cars set alight during violent protests in Southport. The disorder spread following a vigil for 3 girls killed in a knife attack at a Taylor Swift-themed holiday club. Alice De Silva Aguirre, 9, B.B. King, 6, and Elsie Stancombe, 7, were all fatally stabbed in Southport on Monday, while a 17-year-old boy, who cannot be named for legal reasons because of his age, remains in custody, accused of murder and attempted murder. Merseyside police said that a large group of people, believed to be supporters of the English Defence League, had started to throw items such as bricks towards a mosque in the seaside town around 7:45 p.m. The Prime Minister has already said that the rioters will feel the full force of the law, while Home Secretary Yvette Cooper described the scenes as appalling and branded the protesters violent thugs. Former First Minister Humza Yousaf also took to Twitter and X with a statement writing, "Attacking mosques and chanting Islamophobic abuse, let's not pretend the far-right care one jot about children murdered in Southport. These thugs are scum who are exploiting the killing of children for their own bigoted ends. This is what happens when you appease the far right." Prior to the riot, Downing Street had been forced to issue a statement over concerns that misreporting online could inflame tensions in the community. Officers put on helmets and riot gear after stones and bottles were launched at them, and police vehicles were damaged and set on fire. In a post on social media, the force said shops had been broken into and looted, adding that those responsible will be brought to justice. The violent scenes saw 27 officers taken to hospital, with 12 others being treated and discharged at the scene, North West Ambulance Service said. Merseyside Police said 8 officers suffered serious injuries including fractures, lacerations, a suspected broken nose and concussion. Chief Constable Serena Kennedy said the officers injured in Tuesday's protests will now be unavailable for duty in what is an incredibly busy time for the force. Videos posted on social media showed people throwing wheelie bins and bricks at officers who held riot shields to push the crowds back. The violent protests followed hundreds of people taking part in a peaceful vigil for the stabbing victims outside Southport's Atkinson's Arts venue, with many in tears as they laid flowers and cards of remembrance. As well as the 3 children who died, 8 other youngsters suffered stab wounds and 5 are in a critical condition, alongside 2 adults who were also critically injured, police said. The vigil was followed by the protest outside the mosque as demonstrators chanted far-right slogans and clashed with police in St Luke's Road. In a statement on Tuesday evening, Assistant Chief Constable Alex Goss said the actions in Southport tonight will involve many people who do not live in the Merseyside area or care about the people of Merseyside. There has been much speculation and hypothesis around the status of a 17-year-old male who's currently in police custody, and some individuals are using this to bring violence and disorder to our streets. We've already said that the person arrested was born in the UK, and speculation helps nobody at this time. The suspect, who was born in Cardiff to Rwandan parents, is from the village of Banks, just outside Southport, and a road in the area was cordoned off by detectives on Monday afternoon. Police said that although their motive for the attack is unclear, it is not believed to be terror-related. A 32-year-old man from Standish was arrested on suspicion of possession of a flick knife in East Bank Street, near where the vigil took place on Tuesday evening. He was taken into custody, and there were no reports that anyone was injured during the incident, Mersey police said. That article was by Adam Robertson.
That concludes this week's edition of the National Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Tune Review and to tell your friends about our service.